Greetings, everyone. Today is Wednesday, and we're gonna do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the work on Sonnet 12. First of all, come up to the front if you haven't already, and make sure that you get your graphic organizer from Paradise Lost, your multiple choice quiz. I don't think I'm gonna have finished grading these epic simile paragraphs. If I do, I don't think I will, honestly. So come get this, and when you get back to your chair, make sure that you go to the Paradise Lost page. So that's your Paradise Lost page is going to be where? Somewhere here. I think I asked you to have a blank page in between Oedipus and the sonnets. So there should be a blank page here for Paradise Lost, and if you could fold, just go ahead and, like you've got here, if you could fold your papers and tape them in. If you need the back side, you can do that as well. So I have some back here. I've got my little, this is the template, the sentences, the quiz, etc. So I have them taped into both sides of the page. All right, I'm going to ask Mrs. Barton to pause the video so that you can take about 5 minutes. Please don't take any longer than that. Do it quickly and get everything taped into your notebook. We are back. And the next thing I want you to do is in your journals, where you wrote down all of the information on sonnets. If you were not here and don't have this information, please take a picture of your neighbors who actually was able to write these down. I don't know if I did. I think I did this for period 5. But possibly not. Just letting you know that every sonnet can be divided into 2 sections as well. You've got 3 quatrains and a rhyming couplet. You also have an octave and a sestet, not like an octave, but an octave. Okay, we did this, the poetry analysis spots. Now what I'd like you to do is please write down Shakespeare's sonnets. And then, if you would, take these notes down, please. Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets. And his first 126 sonnets are called the Fair Youth Sonnets. Fair because he was beautiful, the youth was. They're lighter in nature. They offer some hope. It's possible the fair youth could have been Shakespeare's lover, could have been his friend, could have been his BFF. Male companionship was highly regarded back in those days, even the Greek and Roman days. It did not have to necessarily be any kind of homoerotic relationship. Sometimes friends were so close that if one died in battle, the other would fall on his sword, that kind of thing. So, but, it could have been any one of these. Lots of critical essays written on that. One thing we do know is that the Fair Youth Sonnets were written to a gentleman, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. Sonnets 127 to 152 are the Dark Lady sonnets. She's got dark hair, and they're also more somber. So go ahead and write that down. And Mrs. Barton can pause the video as we go, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep talking. Sonnets 153 to 154 are Greek sonnets concerned with Cupid. And then I want to go back. Of these 126 first sonnets, sonnets 1 through 17 are actually called the procreation sonnets. That's right, they're the having children sonnets. And what they do is they encourage a young man, let's see if you can read this. The procreation sonnets encourage a young man, a particular fair youth, to have children because of his striking beauty and the passage of time and the inevitability of death. So that's why this person, this beloved, this friend, this lover, this fair youth, doesn't say anything about marrying someone. It just says it's important for him to have children to carry on his legacy of his beauty. Just to let you know that, the average age lifespan, I think, was like 40 or 50 years old. It was very young, and so people thought of death much more regularly at a young age than they do now. This young man, I believe, was blonde, and yeah, just really, that's one of the things we know about him. There's actually a name, but I can't remember that name now. Okay, again, Mrs. Barton can pause this. All right. And one of the things that you're going to do, as I said, tomorrow, your goal is to write an essay tomorrow. So you're going to write an essay on sonnet number 12. Now, I was going to have you go over sonnet number 2 and 12 and decide between the two of them. If you want to do number 2 on your own at night, that's fine. I'd like to have you get sonnet number 12 down so that the content is simple, because I'm actually more concerned about your writing. I want to see that you can write. And rather than give you a difficult poem and something difficult, which is poetry analysis, I'm going to make sure you know what to say about your sonnet so that you can write about it. Okay, here's the structure of the essay, the poetry essay. First of all, you're going to write an intro. It's probably only going to need to be 1 sentence, max 2 sentences. 3 sentences might be too long. Don't give away too much, and you definitely want to have a strong thesis. We're going to go over that in a little bit. She'll probably pause the video. All right, your first paragraph is going to be about your first lit device, and you want to write your essay in such a way as you start in the beginning, then you work your way to the middle, and then your conclusion is the rhyming couplet. And that doesn't mean that if you want to talk about imagery, that doesn't mean you only have to talk about imagery in the first 4 lines. You can talk about imagery throughout, but you can just say, as the passage opens, and then you can talk about how imagery or alliteration or syntax or contrasts or personification or whatever is used by the speaker throughout the poem to do all kinds of things. The next thing is paragraph 2, okay? Paragraph, and this should be a pretty extensive paragraph. One of the things I noticed with some of you is you followed the template for the paragraph, which was great. You followed this template, which was awesome, but you made your sentences very short. You need to really expand on those details and expand on that commentary. This is going to be a summative poetry essay, so you want to make sure that you give it your all. You can use all of your notes while you're writing it too. All right, the second paragraph, you can talk about another literary device. You could say, and you could talk about the second part of the poem. In the third quatrain, the speaker shifts to another literary device, and maybe that's contrast, or maybe there's a shift in tone that's caused by certain literary devices. Although, and if for some reason you want to talk about imagery here, or anaphora here, or something here that was already used previously, you can say something like, although the anaphora used in earlier lines highlighted the when things were going to happen in the and, it now continues to highlight just the and, signifying the continuance of the, of the speaker's concern that the beloved carries on his legacy. I don't know, something like that. But you see, if I wrote about imagery here, and if I write about personification here, that's not a problem. But if personification does start earlier, then this is how you would say it. Please always remember that if you write about tone, tone is created by a literary device. Tone does not come from the summary of what's happening in the poem. And then your concluding paragraph should be about a couple sentences, can just be like 3 sentences if you want. You can talk about what the rhyming couplet accomplishes, its resolution, and the literary device in the rhyming couplet would be, you've got personification here, times scythe, you've got alliteration, and you've also got the repeat here of brave, which is the verb to brave, and brave here. So you've got repetition as well. So the conclusion doesn't have to be that long. These two paragraphs need to be pretty substantial. So what that means is that you need to have a lot to write about in both of these. Okay? Now, what I'd like you to do is pause the video. And when you pause, okay, this is done. Oh, by the way, before I forget, laments. This is your new vocabulary word. Nefarious, all of those are for Paradise Lost. They're all kind of really harsh words. Use your tone wheel to find some good vocabulary words. But laments means kind of like a sorrowful pondering. Okay, and this is how the lamenting, the speaker is lamenting the passing of time. So there's your new vocabulary word. In just a minute, I'm going to have Mrs. Barton pause the video, and you're going to go back, and with your neighbor, you're going to go back to your sonnets, and please just kind of quiz each other on the sonnets, on the language of the sonnet, which is the quatrains, the volta, octave sestet, the rhyming couplet, etc. Also, review what it is that you are supposed to focus on when you're analyzing poetry. All right, so if you could pause the video and do that, that would be great, and then I'll go over the next thing. Okay, the next thing that I'd like you to do before you do your work on Sonnet 12 is I'd like you to take a look at this scoring rubric, and I want you to pay attention to how you earn your points with a thesis. Please take a few minutes. I want you to read over the evidence and commentary and just highlight or underline the differences between each of the levels. And then also I want you to look at this 1 point for sophistication. Read this over, highlight or circle some of the things that you think are interesting. Mrs. Barton's going to give you a few minutes to do that. And when you finish with that, please chat about those major differences. Okay, now, here, I wanted to point this out to you just so that you know what we're looking for. This thesis right here, this is the prompt. How does the speaker use literary devices to illuminate Satan's complex entry into God's fold? This, the speaker uses imagery and epic similes to highlight Satan's complex entry into God's fold. This is a 0-point thesis because it only restates the prompt. This, the speaker uses imagery and epic similes to highlight Satan's complex entry into God's fold, which is just a repeat, as he seeks to enter where he doesn't belong. This might work for a topic sentence, but for your thesis statement, this is just a repeat. This would be a 0 for a thesis. Now we're getting somewhere. In Milton's passage from Paradise Lost, the speaker uses imagery and epic similes to suggest that Satan has an unstoppable drive, motivated by both instinct and intent, to invade God's fold and destroy those who dwell securely within its walls. Now we have a thesis that talks about being Satan's motivation and what he intends to do. This is a 1-point defensible thesis, so you want to make sure you do that when you write about sonnet number 12. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually putting this onto Google Classroom, this slide, and you can see that if you just have this in your paragraph, as good as these sentences are, in the opening passage, the use of imagery accentuates Satan's complex entry into the fold as barriers created by nature hinder his journey. Portraying the undergrowth as thick and twined, packed with shrubs and tangling bushes, the speaker highlights the dense barricade blocking Satan's path. If this is all you have, nice sentences, not enough. Same thing here. You're getting there, but not enough. Again, you'll have to look at this on Google Classroom. Here, we're starting to get to a 3. Here, we're starting to get to a 4. I did the same thing. I gave you examples with epic similes. Again, if this is all there is, it's just a summary. So just a 1 for evidence and commentary. Again, a 2 for evidence and commentary. A 2. And now we're starting to get to a 4. Okay, a really strong evidence and commentary paragraph. Okay, I'm going to put this on Google Classroom for you so that you can spend time on this on your own time. Okay, I think that's it. Now we're almost ready for the rest of the lesson.